gun in love.
Welcome back, guys.
Hey!
I'm Gerard Abraham. This is Kristen Abraham. Thank you for tuning in once again. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Please subscribe to this channel, Yahweh Music. What is your Instagram?
It's
lovely.
Kristen Nicole Official.
She should have named it pretty lady.
What's yours?
JCA Official. And be sure to follow us and stay tuned for more content.
Yes.
You have the floor.
Thank you. So on this episode, we want to talk about Black love. It is, getting close to the fall. Summer is wrapping up. Cuffing season. So we just really wanted to address the topic of Black love and, what it means to us.
Mm-hmm.
And a few reasons why in society it seems like it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
So, what does Black love mean? I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but yet so intricate.
Are you asking me?
Oh, I mean, it kind of is a general statement, so to speak. Like for me, I would say that it's not just specifically for a Black couple, but for the individual themselves.
Yeah.
And how they love, how they perceive themselves is one of the reasons why it seems like it's so hard. And I think that the society really has made it a point, so to speak, to down the Black male.
Well, African Americans are known to have a lot of dysfunctional issues within our society, our culture, and our neighborhoods, more so than any other race.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And it's been that way for some time. Contributed mostly to the slavery 400-year factor, and then the racism that America was actually built off of. And when you have a foundation like that for a country, naturally you're going to have dysfunction that continues. And it's not to say that this is some type of pity party for anyone with brown skin, but it makes you think, and it makes you feel, because you have to understand it and acknowledge it for what it is. So when it's put into the public front like that, it's put on a platform where it's viewed, whether under scrutiny or whether under skepticism, it's viewed as two individuals or even one individual not necessarily knowing what love is. And that is the general misconception of Black folk, that we don't know how to love.
Right.
We don't know how to love ourselves, mainly first and foremost, and we don't know how to love each other. And Black love was something that was a phrase of terminology coined to dispel that negative stigma. The term Black itself is actually deemed as a negative stigma, because a lot of people like to refer to themselves of my color as African American, or even the original Israelite. They have a lot of different ways of describing themselves, and especially when it comes to biblical knowledge and people of faith. So it's always one of those things where there's a lot of controversy behind it. But Black love is the phrase that is coined when something stands the test of time, stands the test of controversy, and it's still love being shown. So it is a form of walking in love. It is a biblical thing that is actually tailor reference to a particular group of people. Now, it doesn't cut out any other group of people. It doesn't necessarily mean that
Right.
they are not involved or they are not a part of it. What it means is that the people in that particular ethnic group are prioritized because of the cultural disparity and the issue that every other ethnic group that doesn't look like us don't have that problem so much as we do. It's not as prevalent. So they don't have as big of an issue of loving themselves and loving each other the way that we seem to struggle and have that dysfunction. So it's something that is encouraging us to meet that standard. You understand what I'm saying? And to surpass our forefathers and our ancestors so that we can go further and teach our children and our children's children what love is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So black love is loving yourself first, loving your people second, and then loving all other people third. You understand what I'm saying? But God has to be in the forefront of that. Otherwise, you're not going to know who to love and how. So.
Right. Like, for me, I can say growing up, one of the things that my dad would say was that you have two things against you. That you're black and that you're a woman. And, you know, fast forward to 2020, it's like you have all these things with like racial disparity with, you know, women and the pay differences. And so one of the things that he would reiterate to me was that like you have to work harder.
You do?
And that came from him, you know, coming up in society and knowing that he had to work twice as much as one of his peers or his colleagues. And the reason why I bring that up is because love has everything to do with your own personal self-image and also your connection to a higher power.
Correct.
Which for us is God. And if you don't have that basis and that ground, then there's no way that you can love. So for me, I think that's one of the biggest things that is like a setback for black love, where it's like, it's not that this individual doesn't know how to love because of their color of skin. Right. It's literally just the stereotypes, the typecasting, and the challenges from such a young age up until they become an adult. And right. When you are thinking that you have to be twice as good as someone else, it's almost like a competition. So then you have men that, you know, feel like they have to be extra to be the head of the household, extra to provide. Mm-hmm. And then you have women that think that they have to be extra, better than the next female, even better than a male. So that...
And let's be clear, that creates a certain amount of pressure that should never be on anybody.
That should never be on anybody.
It's twice as much. Exactly.
So it's like then that woman finding her mate and then trying to get her to submit, and it creates a lot of head bumping.
Yeah.
Because you have this strong-willed woman that was raised to think a certain way because of how society is.
Yeah.
That gets with a man that was raised a certain type of way because this is how society is. Right. And they're both raised to be independent.
Correct. So, you know, just to reiterate and to add something to that, you know, in black or African American communities and neighborhoods and just minority neighborhoods in general, there's a lot of the same problems and a lot of the same dysfunctional issues that you see. And those are the things that really test the metal, that test the fire of that love that is being described. And, you know, these are things that no other people in no other places in the world have to deal with. But everyone has their own type of issues and their own type of problems. So, you know, for us, knowing that the stigma of our skin color is placed in front of everything that we ever do, according to some people's perspective, mm-hmm. That's what makes love so important. Mm-hmm. So the word says against love there is no law. which is why black love is such a thing. Where it's like the word itself, black, being described as a person and their ethnicity or their color, or their race, it was meant as something to curse them or something to paint them in a negative light. But against law, there is no love. And against love, there is no law. So what that means is that law being prioritized as the main thing and the purpose in life could never coexist with the principle of love being prioritized. Because when you put law above everything, lives will be taken and destroyed. Law is not to be prioritized that way. It's a form of oppression in a certain sense, especially when it's a man-made law, because men are not perfect. So how can we create a perfect law? When you've got love and the law is to love, that within itself is a perfect law. That's a governed law that came from God. He commanded us to love each other above everything else. So above every 10 commandment he gave, the law of love was the top one. He said, this is the main thing that I want you to do, is to love God and love each other as you love yourselves. And then he said, against love, there is no law.